On the evening of November 24th, 1971, a calm, well-dressed man walked onto a Boeing 727 with a black briefcase. 45 minutes later, he handed a note to a stewardess claiming he had a bomb. By midnight, he jumped out of the plane into freezing winds, total darkness, and history itself. No body was found, no parachute, no trace. This wasn't just a hijacking. It became the only unsolved skyjacking in American history. This is the story of D.B. Cooper, the man who vanished into thin air. The man who called himself Dan Cooper boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305 like any other passenger. He wore a dark suit, a neatly pressed white shirt, a thin black tie, and a raincoat. Witnesses said he was quiet, mid-40s, and almost polite. No panic, no rush. He ordered a bourbon and soda, paid in cash, and lit a cigarette. America had seen hijackings before, but this one was different. When the stewardess first ignored the note, he slipped onto her tray, thinking it was a phone number. He leaned toward her and whispered, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Inside the briefcase, he opened the lid just enough for her to see red cylinders and wires. Calmly, not raising his voice, he dictated his demands: $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a refueling truck ready when the plane landed in Seattle. No alarms, no snipers, no tricks. The pilot relayed the message. The FBI scrambled. Banks pulled together the cash, 21 pounds of marked bills, recorded serial numbers, the kind used for hostage payments. Parachutes were gathered from a nearby skydiving school. In just under 3 hours, every demand was met. When the plane finally touched down in Seattle, Cooper sent all the passengers out unharmed. He didn't attack anyone. He didn't even show the bomb again. Then he instructed the cockpit crew to take off once more, heading south toward Mexico City at an unusually low altitude. He insisted they fly under 10,000 feet, with the cabin depressurized, flaps at 15 degrees, and airspeed at 170 knots. These weren't guesses. These were instructions only someone with aviation knowledge would know. Sometime around 8:13 p.m., as the plane flew through a storm over the dense forests of Washington state, the rear staircase suddenly dropped. A warning light blinked in the cockpit. The pilots felt a sudden upward pressure, as if the plane had just lost a weight from the back. That was the moment Cooper jumped into 200-mile-per-hour winds, in a business suit and loafers, carrying a canvas bag tied around his waist filled with cash. No radio, no GPS, no backup parachute, and not a single piece of him was ever found. The FBI launched the largest manhunt in aviation history. Thousands of troops, helicopters, dogs, and aircraft searched forests, rivers, and mountains. But the night was brutal. Rain hammered the ground. Winds tore through the trees. Temperatures dropped into the 30s. If Cooper hit the ground wrong, his body could have shattered. If he landed in a river, his body could have vanished downstream. And yet, no remains, no equipment, no clothing, no parachute fabric was discovered. Search teams found absolutely nothing. The FBI first assumed he had died. Most experts agreed. Jumping into a storm at night with no experience was suicide. But then tiny pieces of information began to complicate the theory. Cooper had known about the Boeing 727 rear staircase, a feature few passengers even knew existed. He knew it could be lowered mid-flight, something only a handful of people were aware of. He knew the exact airspeed the plane needed to maintain for a safe jump. And he chose the older, non-military parachute, the one a professional skydiver would pick. These weren't the choices of a reckless amateur. These were the choices of someone who prepared. Yet, one thing seemed strange. Cooper jumped with the ransom in a simple canvas sack. No harness, no equipment. If he hit the wind wrong, he could have lost the bag immediately. But then again, he requested 4 parachutes, almost as if he wanted the authorities to believe he might take a hostage with him if the parachutes were sabotaged. It was a clever psychological trap. The FBI couldn't risk giving him a defective parachute. That detail alone showed advanced planning. For years, tips poured in. A woman claimed her ex-husband was Cooper. A dying man confessed on his deathbed. One man bragged about it so much that he became a suspect just from running his mouth. A mechanic, 2 ex-military men, a librarian, even a transgender woman who had once served in the army. The list grew into the thousands. But most suspects fell apart under evidence. Some were too young, some too old, some too short, some too wide. Some weren't even in the country on that day. The most famous suspect was Richard Floyd McCoy, a Vietnam veteran and skilled skydiver who hijacked another plane 5 months later using a nearly identical method. But McCoy was eventually ruled out. His appearance didn't match. His timeline didn't fit. And the ransom money from the Cooper case was never found in his possession. Then, in 1980, 9 years after the hijacking, an 8-year-old boy digging near the Columbia River found bundles of cash buried in the sand. The serial numbers matched the ransom money. 3 bundles, partially destroyed, totaling about $5,800. It was the first and only physical evidence from the case ever found, but it raised more questions than answers. The spot wasn't even near the supposed landing zone. The bills were weathered in a way that suggested they spent years underwater before washing ashore. Did Cooper die? Did someone else move the money? Did the river shift it downstream? Investigators found no human remains nearby. No parachute straps, no equipment, nothing. The river lead went nowhere. Then came the startling revelation. Cooper might not have been named D.B. Cooper at all. That name came from a mistake. A reporter misheard Dan Cooper and wrote D.B. in a newspaper headline. The name stuck. But Dan Cooper is also the name of a Canadian comic book hero who jumps out of planes. In one issue, the character parachutes out of a jet. The resemblance was uncanny. Was Cooper inspired by a comic? Was he Canadian? He ordered his drink bourbon and soda, but the way he phrased it sounded foreign to American bartenders. He used the term negotiable American currency, something uncommon in U.S. speech, but normal in international English. His mannerisms suggested he could have been ex-military, possibly from an airbase. Some speculated he was a veteran from the Korean War. Others believed he could have worked as a cargo loader or in aviation maintenance, someone familiar with the Boeing 727 mechanics. Over time, more theories emerged. Some believed Cooper landed safely, but died later in the wilderness. Some believed he survived and lived quietly under a new identity. Others believed he never even intended to spend the money and disappeared to prove that a perfect crime was possible. A few theories suggested organized help, though no evidence ever confirmed it. By the early 2000s, the case went cold. Agents retired. Files thickened. DNA samples from the tie Cooper left on his seat revealed metal particles, titanium, rare stainless steel alloys, the kind used in manufacturing aircraft parts during the 1960s. It hinted that Cooper may have worked in the aerospace industry, Boeing, perhaps, or one of its contractors. That clue alone reopened more theories. Who had access to that environment? Who had aviation knowledge, skydiving ability, calmness under pressure, and a reason to disappear? The list of suspects narrowed again, but still never reached a conclusion. In 2016, 45 years after the hijacking, the FBI officially closed the case. They stated that unless new physical evidence appeared, the investigation would not continue. But Cooper's legend didn't fade. He became part of American folklore. Movies, documentaries, books, and endless internet debates turned him into a symbol of mystery. Some people admired him for committing a crime without harming anyone. Some saw him as a skilled professional executing a flawless escape. But after all these years, the truth remains the same. No one knows who he was. No one knows where he landed. No one knows whether he lived or died. He became a riddle carved into American history, a reminder that even in a world full of surveillance, systems, and investigations, a single person can still disappear without leaving a trace. And maybe that's why the mystery still haunts people. It's not just about the hijacking. It's about the possibility that someone could challenge the entire system, step into the night, and simply vanish.